Welcome to the Differently podcast. I'm thrilled that this podcast is a small piece of your journey of growth and transformation. We are on a mission to help more people turn away from negative thinking and outdated patterns so that they too can write new stories. Please help us by sharing this podcast with a friend or a group and help us light a different way for others. Together we can make an impact. Thank you so much for being part of this mission. Kelly, welcome back to Differently.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here again.
I'm excited to have you. And you can go back and listen to Kelly. She was on the podcast back in March of 21, talking about doing money differently. And then we had her back on talking about empowered spending. And today we're going to be talking about creative money practices. So give us a little intro to that, Kelly. There's in my mind as I was thinking about this, I'm like, why does this sound so strange or even risque?
Well, that right there is a great segue into why we need this, right? It's funny. I've heard it said before, like people would rather talk about their sex life than talk about their money because so talk about like
It's
risque
true.
and taboo, like it's such a cultural thing not to talk about, which means for a lot of people, they suffer in silence with it, right? And a lot of the practices that are out there for money, like feel boring or, just like the last thing anybody wants to do. And so today we're gonna shake that up a little bit and find a little more lightness and spaciousness and breath and fun and creativity around money. And I guess all I can say is you have a permission slip to make money fun, right? Like it's just a much better way to approach life. It's there's so much more possibility in it when you approach it with fun and even more than that, like fun might not be what everybody needs. You approach it with what would be aligned for you, what would feel good to you, and start from there. I don't know if that
All right.
question,
Did everyone hear, did you hear that, listener, that we all have a permission slip to sort of partake in this conversation and allow money to be different in our lives, whether that's fun or playful or just lighter or maybe more trusting or whatever that is for you. You have a permission slip and so do we. So Kelly, when you started doing financial bookkeeping and creating your business and all of that, was this always a part of it for you, or was that an evolution for you too?
I would say it was both a catalyst and an evolution. So the reason I say a catalyst is I knew when I started this iteration. Quick background, I started a bookkeeping business in 2004. And at that time, it was really just kind of to get me out of a job that I didn't want to be in. I knew I could make money with it. And it was going to be for whoever needed it. And it wasn't long I was in that, and I had an opportunity to join a registered investment advisor. And that was the next 8 years. And I will skip fast forward through all that stuff, but it was, at that time, it felt stifling. I had to go to people's offices. You didn't have the cloud capabilities we have now. And it felt very limited. I was going to be the local bookkeeper and go to these offices. And so when I was starting this version of the business, it was very important that I was working with people I wanted to work with and being able to explore the energy side of money. I was in a bank doing corporate work, which is very linear and very much in the accounting side. And I was also starting to experience, I was doing some art. I was taking pottery class. There's actually a magazine article about me doing pottery and how it was like the left brain, right brain thing. And it was when I was very much in a linear job, but had this creative side. And I was, doing intuitive movement and yoga and energy work. And I needed those to be to become one whole me, and that it was what I was doing. And I think that was really like the catalyst. I didn't know what that would look like at that time. And I've taken, I've worked with summer Kendall Summerhawk and taken a lot of her programs to learn how to really marry the business part with the energy piece. And so it's been intentionally brought in more and more and more, and I continue to evolve that. But it was always the catalyst of like, I want to have the conversations I want to have with who I want to have them every day of my life. And that's what I get to do. I get to talk about the practical business side of things that was my education and my corporate experience, but bring it in a new way and add this lightness and this levity and things that I've learned to bring into my own money practices and kind of share that with others, because it's so heavy. Like I have multiple sales calls, strategy sessions where people cry, and that's in our first meeting. Money's so heavy for them. And so it's such a gift to be able to lighten that load and bring in this other way of doing money. Mm-hmm. That's why I love when you call it doing differently, because it really is that. Like it's another way, and it's just not conventionally what's been out there. I think there's more and more of it, but in the past, that's not what's there. Like your parents aren't going to get that. They had their checkbook register and they just wrote everything down, and it's just how they did money. And things are different now, and credit cards have changed that, and electronic money has changed that. And there's so many things that have come about that have changed how we work with money, and therefore we have to find new ways to support our lives with it. I didn't even know that answer was within me. So thank you for asking that question. This is what Carla's brilliance is.
Well, I just saw in you like your own evolution of, marrying those different parts of you into your business. I can see how that brings such like aliveness for you in your everyday and serving people and what you do. And then how that just ripples out to everyone you serve too. And I also think just this idea of, are you bringing your full self into whatever you're doing around money? Because I know for myself, the answer usually is no. Like I sort of get into this like money box, like when I'm going to go deal with money. Even yesterday, my husband and I had a conversation. We came in, we were like moving some money around, and we were in this great vibe before that. And we sat down to just like literally do this transfer. And I saw something that didn't seem right on the account, and it was a new account. And I was feeling nervous because it was a new account. And like the whole energy just got sucked out of the room. And after we walked out of the room, and we were both just like, whoa, like all of our past stuff like came up, and we just had to completely reset ourselves after that. But it's, so I love this idea and reminder to like, are you bringing your whole self and these other parts of you that are important? Because I adore creativity. And so this idea of bringing it in with money is just exciting.
Yeah. I just want to highlight, we could just stop the podcast here because what you just, no, I'm just kidding. But what you just shared is exactly like what I'm talking about. Well, we have other ways to do it, but where you said you guys reset, that was you bringing your current set of skills that you have that you use in other areas to support you in money. I bet if you went back a number of years, you wouldn't have done that reset. That would have carried forward in the day, might have even spilled into weeks and, impacted that relationship and decisions you're making. Like think of how that could have rippled out into your life. And so that was a perfect example of how you can do money differently. Give yourself that space, take a breath, whatever tools you have to do the reset that serve you the best. And then you can get back into that good energy, the good vibes, instead of letting it dictate your next hours and days and weeks and months.
Thanks for that reflection. I hadn't even connected that dot. So thank you for that. Okay. So what are creative money practices, and where should we start with this?
Yeah. There's so many. So I guess let's stay on that theme that we were on. I kind of have 3 buckets I came up with because this could be infinite. Like you could play and have fun all day. But I just kind of came up with 3 to keep. I like to talk a lot, so it'll give us a chance of keeping this brief. But the first one is really just creating some self-care around your money practices. So what you shared was a perfect example of doing that. Like if things get yucky, like take a break, take a breath and go do whatever gets you back into the energy that would serve you. Don't just stay like melting into a puddle in that energy. Like that's not going to serve you. You can't make a good decision from that. It's going to impact your relationship. So give yourself that opportunity to put it away and take care of yourself and then go back to it. But money dates is another one. And that comes from Barry Tesler, who wrote The Art of Money. And I don't know that she's the first person who said it, but she's the first person I heard say it. And she talked about like having money dates with yourself or with a partner. And you can make that really fun. Like some people will even create kind of rituals around that. Like they don't talk about money. Like if they're going to have like a specific money conversation where they're getting into kind of the weeds, they might go to the coffee shop and bring what they need there because that's a fun place for them to do it. Or they might just kind of set themselves up in a fun way that feels supportive. In Barry's world, she talks about she gets wine and chocolate out. And like that's how she has her money date. So you find some things that can create some ritual for you that are supportive and kind of, again, bring that little lightness, comfort into that, because we don't have to sit at a desk for hours and, look at spreadsheets. Like that doesn't have to be your version of a money date. It can look like a really great conversation about your values and goals and where you want to go, and then sprinkle in some of the practical stuff,
So that would be like creating this environment that actually like allows a little more fun, or setting your environment up in a way that almost invites a different energy and approach and mentality. I like that.
Right. Yeah. Good. I would say too, to like split it up. So I think when I was writing that out, I thought about, business. I'm so business focused. And so people like that are just getting ready for tax time at the end of the year. So they spend like a hellish week or weekend going through everything to get ready for tax time versus kind of chunking it up through the year. So the same thing can be with our money through the month or through, whatever that looks like. Some people, it's all in one horrible, dreading chunk that they keep putting off versus doing a little bit all the time, doing maybe it's once a week, or, you have a process of opening up bills or looking at stuff one day and going and paying things another day. Just chunk it up and make it easier on yourself. Take a break when you need to get that breath. And for people that don't struggle with this, that can seem silly. Like for them, they have no trouble going and spending 3 hours in their money. But for somebody who wants to avoid it, it's paralyzing, the idea of having to go spend that much time with it. So they really need to find ways to make it easier. And chunking them up is one of them.
Or
Also doing it with
you.
a friend. Or,
yeah. Or hiring you. That's what I did because I used to be that person that waited till right before the tax appointment at the end of the year, and I'd spend hours going through everything, trying to compile everything. And now you just send me a report and it makes it so much easier.
Shameless plug, but thank you. The other thing that came to mind with that is then you also don't have the benefit of having that information available to you make decisions. So that's a business example. Like it's nice that you have that information every month. But if you think of it from a bill perspective, like I know people that will avoid opening bills. And so that bill becomes bigger and bigger and looms and heavy and, and they haven't looked at it. And they could open it up and, oh my gosh, it's a credit this month and it was no big deal. And so they've made all these decisions since avoiding it that could have been made differently. Or if they were kind of being more intentional about their goals with their money and things like that, that they, by spending time with it going along, it helps inform their decisions from a different place than if they, only look at it when they absolutely have to. That's going to impact how we make decisions throughout. So by chunking it up and either getting some support that's sending you a report or kind of breaking it down for yourself, it gives you the opportunity to be more informed along the way, which can sound boring, but it also is the way to make decisions that are propelling you into a future you want to head towards,
Well, and for people that do like are avoiders like that, is there a way to be more creative? I mean, I know you're saying to chunk it up, but even just to shift our approach or thinking around opening those bills.
Yeah. So I've got two quick answers. There's probably a million more, but the one is like, do it with a friend. So, they don't have to look at your stuff, but you guys can be doing it at the same time. That can be
Mm.
either in location or remotely. Like you can both be on Zoom kind of doing your thing and you're just holding space for each other. Or even like, this is, this is small, but, creating, like, let's say you have a folder, you stick your bills in, you open it up and you stick them in, or even as you like store them before you're opening them up, let's say they always go in a folder, or a folder on your mailbox or something like that. Like make that fun, make it a fun name or decorate the folder. Like it's these tiny little creative
Mm.
touches that make it more approachable and impact your nervous system as you go to do the thing. And it just makes it that much easier. That
Oh,
was just a couple thoughts I had.
I just had another idea so if you haven't listened to the empowered spending episode with Kelly, you might go back. But one of the things we talked about in there was aligning your spending to your goals. And so maybe that folder is even aligned to that larger goal. And
Yeah.
so you put the bill in there, and when you pay it, you remember like, this is in alignment with my values, or this is in alignment with that larger goal.
Yeah.
And it changes the whole feeling
Mhm.
about it.
Yeah. Well, this is why it's so important to talk about it. Cause even as you said that, it brought another idea to mind. And I've shared this one before, but I sometimes forget it. Like sometimes when we think about the heaviness of money, a lot of times I run into it. People have shame about debt or things that they've spent on, and they just think of, let's just specifically say credit card bill. And they only think about the weight of having to pay that back, and or the shame. Like there's people carry shame around debt. I've got a very neutral feeling about debt. I think of it as a tool, but that's taken some work for me to frame it that way. And part of how I can frame it that way is to really consider, what was that used for? So let's think about a business owner that maybe has incurred debt to get their business up and running. Well, that was an investment. If that was student loan debt, there'd be no shame in that. It just is what it is. But when it's a credit card debt for a business owner, that can feel so heavy. That was my investment in my business. You can even rename that bill in your whatever you're doing, spreadsheet or whatever you're doing, or even in your mind, just like, that's my investment money. I'm just paying back. That was an investment in
Mm.
me. Or you went on this really great trip with your family and you chose to charge it. That can feel like, oh, we shouldn't have spent that money. Or that can feel like, holy crap, that was a life-changing trip to wherever. Think of what we experienced. And so those little reframes are a creative opportunity to shift what could feel heavy and shameful into, remembering the feelings that were there when you decided to do those
Mm.
things. And it just brings that little bit of lightness in, which again, as you're going, I'm not a nervous system expert, but I know how heavy things can feel if they're layering and layering and layering, and you're not giving yourself that opportunity to reframe them. So those little shifts bring that lightness. They make it easier for you to approach these things and not avoid them.
Such a good reminder. I just had that experience. I was able to finally pay off a business credit card, and it's kind of like, oh, sometimes it's so hard to like take that money and put it towards that, right? But I did, like,
Right.
right as I was thinking about it, I remembered like, what was that for? And then I remembered that part of that was for that Bill Barron training that actually you and I met in. And that training still lives inside my business today. That training allowed me to level up my business. And like, it did exactly what you're saying for me in that moment.
Yeah. So that could feel like a heavy weight until now it can feel free, but that could have felt like a heavy weight, or it's just like, that's an investment. That's what people do to build their business.
Yeah.
It's so much lighter. Another thought that popped into my head was, and I've heard this one out there. Some people have heard it before and some people it's new, but like making usernames and passwords that are much more empowering. So, I get to see a lot of passwords for people, and there's some really fun ones out there that are about like goals that people have and freedom and prosperity and abundance and payoff. And, there's all these words that they bring into their passwords and you can do that with some kind of number, something that people can't figure out, but it's every time you type that in, how much more fun is that? Or make your username something that just reminds you like that this is a fun thing. This is why I did this. Your credit card username could have been business growth, Carla business growth, and it's those little things that just create a little bit more lightness, a little more creativity around what we're doing.
Your words create your world. I totally believe in that. I think that's a great idea. So like those financial passwords could be tied to
Yep.
your goal and you're reaffirming that
Yep.
every time you log in. Such a great idea. Any like what are your favorite like yes, go ahead.
Oh, I just was
Mhm.
gonna, I have a couple other ones, but
Yes.
go ahead.
Good. No,
Ask your
do
question.
it. Tell us the other ones for sure.
um, so I was thinking about this and thinking about, other practices we use, right, to create more creativity or light or room. And I was thinking about like kind of how do we stay in flow with money? How do we unclutter our lives? And I remember there's kind of a body of work I've used. I don't even bring it out all the time, but it was around clearing money clutter. And as I said it, I was like, oh, I haven't done this for my wallet in a little bit. Like there's so many places in your life where you have this money clutter, where money is stuck, it's stagnant, it's not working for you, it's not it's creating stress. And so I have a couple examples of that. And one is a wallet, like last time I went in my wallet, I had 4 receipts sticking out of the one part, I had more cards than I probably needed in there. My change thing was full. I rarely ever count change when I'm in a register. And so there's an opportunity there to like neaten that all up,
Mhm.
lighten the load in my purse, give money a really pretty place to be. And so that's another creative way of handling your money and being with your money. That's a little different. So that was one.
That's a brilliant
Did you?
idea. And it ties to a practice. And I did a podcast on this called The Art of Sweeping, but it's really like, how do you keep your life and your well-being and everything, like your vitality alive? People go through work with me and they start to feel better and then they start to get afraid like, oh my gosh, this is going to go away. But one of the ways that you keep it alive is what you're saying, is that you sweep regularly. And I love this idea around money, like clearing out clutter, because that just makes space
Right.
for new things to come into your life. And also kind of looking at like what are you tolerating? Like the couple weeks ago,
Mhm.
actually I'm drinking out of it now, but I have this like tall, clear wa- cup for water that takes a straw, but I had lost the straw like months ago. And like every time I opened the cupboard, I would see this cup and I'm like, oh, I want to use that cup, but I don't have a straw. And for whatever reason, I wasn't buying myself a new straw. And so, like a week or so ago, I went and to Starbucks and they had like this little 2-pack of straws in this really cool little zipper pouch. And I have
Mhm.
2 special straws. I can't tell you, it's so simple and so dumb, but it's like this luxury in my day. Is every day I get to fill my cup now and I have it at my desk and I'm drinking more water and it checks all these boxes. And I can't believe
Yep.
that I tolerated that for so long. So like bringing these
We could
little
do a whole
tiny
episode on that.
luxuries. Yes,
Yeah.
okay, maybe we will.
A whole episode. Like I'm a big believer in profit first. And some people that take on profit first can get into a scarcity mindset. I don't think that's Mike's intention at all, but I've seen it in practice. And one of the guys, not to, if this person ever hears this, I'm sorry, but he was talking about like his chair and how one more day, I'm going to make it one more day with this chair, and how that was him like choosing not to spend money in his business. And this chair was like lopsided, ripped, the most disgusting thing. And you just think about like, what are your chiropractor bills going to be like because you're sitting in this chair? And like, what is, so is this like little $50 maybe thing that he could replace and feel good in all day long. And he had
Wow.
this pride in keeping it. And so that was just one of those like, what are you tolerating is a great way to say it. Or I've got one more story like that to tell, and it's in our house. My grandpa owned our house before we took it, or before we bought it. And I grew up there as a little kid. And from when I was a little girl, and before that, I'm sure, so 50 plus years probably, the downstairs bathroom didn't work right. It just didn't flush well. It didn't work right. Every party, every anything, everybody would be warned about this stupid bathroom. It would freeze. There were all kinds of issues. And when we got the house, we wanted to fix that. and it cost $400 to fix that bathroom. And it's worked perfectly for however many years we've been there. And it's like such a small thing that was like,
Mm.
you had to adjust your life around that bathroom and go to a different one because of that issue. That was a $400 fix,
Wow.
and it's just so interesting. There are so many places we're doing this in our lives, and there's times where it's fine to tolerate the thing, like it's not going to make a difference for you. But there's times where just that tiny little change, or it could be a bigger change, it has infinite number of benefits to it to make that, and it's worth making that investment. And there's probably places all over our lives that we could find examples of that,
Mm.
right?
Yes, I love that.
That's
So
a great
be on the
example.
lookout, everyone.
Yeah, clear some of that up. Another great one, and this can be really fun, is like, I know everybody, we've got our change jar here, and we've got another thing over here, and then we have gift cards, and you can start to collect this stuff. And either because you don't feel like dealing with turning in the change or the gift cards, a lot of times that can come from, well, I'm saving it for something really special. I'm guilty of that at times. But that's stopping the flow of money. It's keeping it
Mm.
stagnant, and again, like not creating room for it to come in. So kind of a fun way to think about that with your money is go use that, cash in that change and go do something fun, or turn it into bills you
Mm.
can actually use, or go spend all your gift cards and go have fun with them. And or maybe on your money dates, you like, my next 4 money dates, I'm going to use these gift cards. Like, what a creative approach to handling your money in a different way that can feel really fun and bring, again, lightness and flow and spaciousness around your money.
Mm. You just reminded me of an old memory from when our boys were little, and we didn't have a lot of money, and I think we talked about this on the empowered spending. Like, we wanted to be generous, but we didn't really feel like we had the means to be generous. And I think I read this story, a similar story in a book, and I was all inspired. But we like started this big jar. We started filling it just with the coins and stuff throughout the year. And then on Christmas Eve, we took that big jar, the four of us, we got in the car, we took that big jar and we found like just a random porch to go put that on Christmas Eve. And that was just like, I mean, it brings tears to my eyes right now, but it was just like the so joyful and fun thing that we did. And
Yeah.
just to think about how that person found that and was surprised, you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That gave me chills. Like that talk about checking all the boxes. Like, that's incredible. And that's just creative. You got to be creative. And like, what a way to get in the spirit of Christmas. I love it.
Yeah.
I
So
think I've got
fun.
one
This is
more
such a great
that I wanted to talk about.
conversation.
The last one is just around like, who says that spread like your money has to be tracked in a spreadsheet? Who says that you have to
Mm.
use a boring check register for you doing it? Or who says, like, some people will just avoid it because I don't deal with spreadsheets. So even who says it has to be on a spreadsheet? And so something I've played with, you and I have actually done some of these things together, but is like um, creating like fun trackers, right? Like, there's infinite number. You can get some on Etsy or you can build them yourself. You can just draw on a piece of paper, like something that is fun for you. It can be color. For me, it's got to be colorful. It's got to like include elements that are important to me. But like, let's say I want to increase my sales in my business, and I know I need to kind of track my activity to get there. Well, I can do that in a spreadsheet, or I can make this little chart that I get to color in as I have sales calls, or as I, close a sale, I get to color that in. And I do know that there's some neuro pathways that are created with that. It helps make, you're kind of writing down a goal, which is more likely to make it happen, but it's just more fun. And people are more apt to do that if it's just more fun. So introducing true creativity, like creating a little art project for your goals, even if it's kind of some of the boring money stuff, will make it more fun. Just one popped in my head. Let's say you want to pay down a credit card, and you could do a little spreadsheet on something, and that would feel kind of boring and gross. You're not going to do it. But if you were to write up a sheet about that payoff plan and draw some pictures on it and create a little chart you could color in as you're paying it off, that's going to create more incentive to do it, lightness around it, and you're more apt to remain focused on that goal and get it done.
Well, and you're visually like coloring in that progress and seeing that progress in front of you. So fun. I love this idea. And I think a lot of your clients are probably creative in some way, and mine are too. So I'm sure people listening are going to love that idea. What is your
Yeah.
favorite creative money practice, Kelly Marshall?
Probably I have a million that I play with from time to time, but the most consistent one that I do is my income tracking. I just use my planner, but I always have a fun planner and it is in paper. This is my current planner. Not that anybody can see it, but I'll show Carla. It's got flowers. It's got lots of color.
It's very
So
fun.
I take, thank you. I take the calendar page and I write in my goal on the top. And then I just have pencil and I write in the days that I receive money and I keep track of that through the month. And it helps me again stay focused on my revenue goal. But I swear it also is magic because um, it first I always set a money goal that's a little bit of a stretch. And like right now I have a stretch goal on there. And so for a couple months, I may not meet that. And then all of a sudden I'll start to hit that stretch goal. And it's like, oh my gosh. And I could have just lost track of it. Like if I can look in my P&L, of course it's there. I'm a bookkeeper, but that's not fun to me. But when I track it this way and I get to celebrate it every week, I add it up on the Saturday of the calendar. I get to celebrate it and something magic happens. And before I know it, I hit the goal. So that's my very favorite creative, consistent practice. I always do.
That is so awesome that I want to reiterate what you just said to make sure people got it and make sure I got it. But you've taken just a paper calendar planner and you've made it sort of your money calendar, and you start by putting your monthly goal in it. Is that right?
Yep.
And then you're tracking on the days, like when money comes into your life. And you did an exercise with me in this, I think years ago, but so it's not just money in your business, but it could be like you got a refund check for $10 in the mail and you log that, like any money that comes into your life.
Right.
And
so
then
I tend to focus mine on business, but absolutely this can work in personal life. And I can guarantee people heard that and they're like, well, I get paid twice a month. What do I need to do this for? But that's a great point because money is surprising and how it can come into our lives. So if somebody gives you something, like they gift you a coffee, you could even choose to track that. So you make the rules. You could track whenever somebody gives you something, when you find money, when a surprising check comes in the mail. Some people even do when they save money on something, they'll start to track that because if we're being intentional about how we're doing stuff and we want to call in saving more money, you could track how much you're saving. And that becomes then a more fun way to meet that intention and that goal. So you make the rules, but at the base, track every penny that comes into you, whether you found it on the ground outside your car or you got paid in a paycheck or you got paid by a customer if you're a business owner, and put that in your little fun money tracker and watch it grow.
I love that. And you could bring that to your money date, but also it feels like you're also sort of flexing the muscle of receiving, which I know is something I've had to look at in my life where I was playing a gatekeeper, like, okay, this kind of money and receiving is okay in my life. And maybe this isn't okay. But it feels like you're flexing that muscle too, which is important.
Yeah. To give a real example of that, I had a client who only celebrated big money days in her business. So if she didn't get a check for $10,000, it didn't count, kind of a thing. And she was struggling. And when we started this, it gave her the permission to celebrate literally pennies or $100 payment for something versus only the big wins. And so that's where the magic comes in, like the energy of it. It gets you looking for more things. It gets you acting a little bit differently, but I also believe it just kind of stays in that flow and positivity and encourages more to come. You don't close that door energetically to the little money, in her example. Yeah.
It's funny. It just made me think I found $6 in the dryer the other day. And I'm like,
yeah,
I know it came from Quentin's pockets. I'm like, this is my reward for doing the laundry.
Your laundry tip.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So much good stuff. Thank you so much for stretching our minds and helping us think more creatively and innovatively around money. Before we close, I want you to tell people a little bit about what it looks like to work with you. Like, give us a picture of, and maybe this ties into that. I know it does because you've helped me think creatively so much about money.
Yeah. I have a few pieces of it. I mean, at the foundation is our bookkeeping services. So we do bookkeeping for small businesses, mostly conscious entrepreneurs, mostly service businesses. So that's one way we serve people. And kind of the next layer to that is I do have some of my clients will choose advisory on top of that. So we'll meet typically monthly, some are quarterly, to make sure that they're on track with their goals. Like, it runs the gamut between money mindset to cash flow forecasting. Like, it can be as energetic or as practical as it needs to be. And that's the gift I get of, when I work one-on-one with clients. I do offer coaching outside of that, and that's probably going to evolve between where we're recording this now and when the podcast airs. So I would say stay tuned for that. But and if it's something where you're like, I just wish I could talk to you about it, like, there's always a free strategy session to talk to me about where you're struggling with money. I definitely have more of a focus on the business owner, but I have worked with people who are also not there. But I tend to just love to focus on the business side. So if it's something that somebody wants help with there, they can just book a call and we can see what's a fit. But hopefully by the time this airs, there will be potentially a group coaching opportunity that I'm working on.
That's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then where can they check all of this out? Where can they find you?
Okay. So my website is Terra Care Financial. So it's TERRACARE, TerraCareFinancial.com. I have a Facebook group, the Prosperous and Profitable Conscious Entrepreneurs. I'd like to hang out there. And then I have my Instagram is currently kelly.marshall.8, but will most likely be shifting to something that says Terra Care. There's always a Terra Care hashtag, but there'll probably be something Terra Care Financial for my Instagram handle. I want to update that.
Amazing.
But the link will be on the website.
Yeah. So go check out Kelly's work. I am a huge fan of you and the work you do, and you've inspired me so much in my business life and continue to. Like, I just hired Kelly last week to help me walk through the kind of rethinking my programs and what that looks like. And you're an incredible thought partner. And thank you today for just inspiring us to look through the lens of creativity and innovation and bringing all of these other parts of ourselves into this conversation. So powerful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for letting me be here and inviting me in and talk about my favorite thing.
So great.
Thank you.